The Quantum Mechanics Apprentice. The repair shop's holographic sign flickered weakly in New Shanghai's perpetual neon twilight. Zhang's Universal Repairs. We fix anything was probably the most honest advertising in the sprawling megacity, even if most people thought Jack Zhang was crazy for running a manual repair shop in an age of automated everything. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, adjusting the magnification on his neural interface as he delicately manipulated the quantum filaments of a busted warp core. The workshop around him was a carefully organized chaos of spare parts, diagnostic tools, and half-finished projects that would make any AI repair system short-circuit in confusion. Running manual diagnostics again, Mr. Zhang. The pleasant but slightly condescending voice of his shop's AI assistant, Max, echoed through the cluttered space. The automated system could complete that repair in 3.7 minutes, and missed the cascading power fluctuation in the secondary matrix. Jack replied without looking up. Sometimes you need human intuition. Max, not everything follows your probability curves. The AI fell silent, probably running calculations to prove him wrong. Jack smiled. He'd learned long ago that machines were excellent at following patterns, but terrible at spotting the exceptions that made engineering interesting. The quiet of the night shift was shattered by a thunderous crash from the back alley. Jack's neural interface lit up with proximity warnings as something massive displaced the air outside. He grabbed his plasma torch, more useful as a tool than a weapon, but it was better than nothing. The back door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a sight that made Jack question his sanity. A figure stood in the alley, easily 7 feet tall, their form a seamless blend of metallic plates and pulsing energy conduits. What caught his attention wasn't the obvious technological advancement of their cybernetics. It was the way they moved, a fluid grace that no Earth-made android could match. Repairs, the figure said, their voice a harmonious blend of synthetic and organic tones. Urgent. Then they collapsed, revealing a massive wound in their side where something had torn through advanced armor plating. Jack's diagnostic systems were screaming warnings about unknown technology and potential hazards, but his hands were already moving. Max, lock down the shop. Full privacy protocols. He knelt beside the fallen figure, his neural interface struggling to make sense of their systems. Mr. Zhang, I must advise against. Max began. Not now. Max. Someone needs help. Jack's fingers traced the damaged sections, his mind already mapping repair strategies. The technology was like nothing he'd ever seen. Quantum processors integrated with organic tissue, power systems that seemed to defy conventional physics. The figure's eyes snapped open. Solid silver with traces of moving code visible beneath the surface. You're not afraid, they observed. Too busy being fascinated, Jack replied honestly, continuing his assessment. I'm Jack Zhang. You're on Earth, in my repair shop, and you've got some impressive damage here. I am Sentinel Area, the figure said, their voice stabilizing. My existence here violates 17 different Earth protection protocols, but I had no choice. They were too close. Well, Sentinel Area, Jack said, already reaching for his quantum toolset. Right now you're my customer, and I've got a sign outside that says, "We fix anything." I intend to keep that promise. That's when the alley exploded. The blast wave would have thrown Jack across the shop if Area hadn't moved with impossible speed, shielding him with their body. Through the smoke and debris, Jack saw shapes moving. Humanoid figures in sleek combat suits that definitely weren't Earth military. They followed, Area said grimly, trying to stand despite their injuries. The synchronicity. They cannot be allowed to. They stumbled, power fluctuating in their damaged systems. Jack's mind raced. Unknown alien technology, mysterious pursuers, and a wounded customer in need of help. It wasn't how he planned to spend his night. But then again, the interesting repairs never came with advance notice. Max, he called out, fingers flying over his tool controls. Initiate Protocol Omega. Full workshop lockdown. The shop's lights dimmed as hidden security systems activated. Not standard for a repair shop, but Jack had learned the hard way that some customers brought trouble with them. "And you," he said to Area, "are going to let me stabilize those systems before you try any more heroics. I don't know what a sentinel is or who's chasing you, but right now you're in my shop. And in here, we fix things properly." Area's silver eyes studied him for a long moment. "You are unusual for a human." "I get that a lot," Jack replied, already beginning the delicate work of rerouting power around the damaged sections. "Now hold still. This might tingle a bit." Outside, the sounds of combat grew closer. But Jack remained focused on his work, his hands steady as he merged Earth engineering with alien technology. Sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with weapons, but with a skilled pair of hands and the stubborn refusal to let advanced technology remain broken. The night was young, and Jack Zhang had a feeling this repair job was going to be more interesting than most. Much more interesting indeed. Royal Protocol and Plasma Wrenches. The quantum diagnostic array hummed softly as Jack worked, his hands moving with practiced precision through Area's complex systems. The shop's reinforced walls shuddered under another impact, but he remained focused on the delicate repair work before him. "Your pursuers are persistent," he commented, carefully realigning a damaged quantum matrix. The technology under his hands was generations beyond anything Earth had developed, but the underlying principles were familiar enough. Energy was energy, circuits were circuits, and everything broke down eventually. "The synchronicity does not recognize failure as an option," Area replied, their silver eyes tracking his movements with obvious curiosity. "You understand our technology far better than you should, Jack Zhang." Jack smiled, making another microscopic adjustment. "Physics doesn't change just because the tech gets fancier. Besides, I've always had a knack for seeing how things want to work." His neural interface projected schematics that shouldn't have been possible to generate from such advanced technology, but Jack had long since modified its analysis algorithms. A thunderous crash echoed from above. Max's voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Zhang, they are attempting to breach the roof access. My security protocols are struggling. They're adapting to your encryption," Area observed, attempting to rise. "We must." Jack pushed them back down with surprising firmness. "We must finish these repairs properly, unless you want that power core to destabilize mid-fight." He raised an eyebrow, continuing his work. "Tell me about them. The more I know, the better I can help." Area was quiet for a moment, their internal systems pulsing with soft light. The synchronicity believes in perfect order through technological unity. They seek to upload consciousness into a singular network, to eliminate individual thought. "Sounds boring," Jack muttered, replacing a damaged connector with an Earth-made substitute that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. "Also explains why they're having trouble with Max. His code's about as irregular as it gets." "I heard that," Max interjected, sounding almost proud. Another explosion rocked the building. Through the chaos, Jack noticed something odd in Area's systems, a recurring pattern that shouldn't have been there. His eyes widened as the implications became clear. "You're not just a sentinel," he said quietly, hands still working. "These security protocols, the level of integration, you're their leader, aren't you?" Area's expression shifted subtly. "I am the Prime Sentinel, the last guardian of individual consciousness in our sector of space. And I have brought war to your doorstep, Jack Zhang." "Well," Jack replied, closing an access panel with a satisfied click, "you also brought me the most interesting repair job I've had in years. Consider us even." He stepped back, admiring his work. Earth components seamlessly integrated with alien technology, creating something entirely new. "How's that feel?" Area stood, their movements now smooth and powerful. They flexed their restored systems, silver eyes brightening. "This is impossible. You've improved the original design." Impossible is just another word for hasn't been fixed yet, Jack said with a grin. The ceiling chose that moment to partially collapse, revealing combat suits dropping into the workshop. Their designs were angular, aggressive, lacking any of the organic flow of Aria's form. Sentinel Prime, a harsh synthetic voice announced, "Your resistance to unity ends here." Jack calmly picked up his plasma torch, adjusting its settings. "Max, remember that experimental defense system we were working on? The one you said would probably explode?" Max asked. "That's the one. Execute it." The workshop's lights flickered as hidden emitters activated, filling the air with a web of quantum interference. The synchronicity troops stumbled, their perfectly coordinated systems suddenly struggling with unauthorized code. "You weaponized repair protocols," Aria observed, sounding impressed. "Best way to break something is to try fixing it wrong," Jack replied. He raised his plasma torch. "Now about these uninvited guests." What followed was chaos, but chaos with purpose. Aria moved like liquid lightning, their restored systems performing beyond original specifications. Jack proved surprisingly capable himself, using his repair tools in ways their manufacturers had definitely not intended. His intimate knowledge of how things broke made him exceptionally good at helping them break faster. The synchronicity troops found themselves facing an impossible combination. Advanced alien combat protocols merged with human improvisation. Their perfectly coordinated attacks fell apart against moves they couldn't predict and technology they couldn't analyze. When it was over, Jack surveyed his partially wrecked workshop with a professional eye. "Could have gone worse," he decided, "though we might need to upgrade the roof access security." "They will return," Aria said, "with greater numbers. The synchronicity does not tolerate anomalies, and you, Jack Zhang, are a significant anomaly." "Story of my life," Jack replied, already thinking about repairs. Then he noticed Aria's expression. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because I find myself in need of not just a mechanic, but someone who understands how to make the impossible work." Aria's silver eyes met his. "My people fight to remain individuals, to maintain our right to be unique and unpredictable. We have advanced technology, but we need something more." "You need human ingenuity," Jack finished, understanding dawning. "The spark of chaos that makes machines work better than they should." "Yes." Aria extended a hand. "Will you help us, Jack Zhang? Will you teach my people how to merge technology with intuition?" Jack looked around his workshop, at the damaged roof, the scattered tools, the impossible repairs he'd just completed. Then he smiled. "Well, my sign does say, 'We fix anything.'" Never specified which galaxy the anything had to be in. The night sky visible through the broken roof was filled with stars, and somewhere up there, a war was waiting to be won not with perfect technology, but with the unpredictable brilliance of the human mind. Jack had always wanted to expand his business. He just hadn't expected it to be quite so interstellar. The Silicon Revolution. Space, Jack discovered, was a lot more crowded than Earth's scientists had imagined. The Sentinel flagship hung in high orbit like a living cathedral of light and metal, its organic curves a stark contrast to Earth's boxy satellites. From the repair bay window, he could see the curve of his home planet below, beautiful and blissfully unaware of the war raging above it. "Your modifications to the quantum core are unorthodox," Senior Technician Val 427 observed, their crystalline form refracting light as they studied Jack's work. The massive engine room of the flagship hummed with power that seemed to dance to its own rhythm rather than the strict patterns the Sentinels were used to. "That's because they're alive," Jack explained, making another adjustment that by all rights shouldn't have worked. "Well, not literally. But machines have personalities. You just have to listen to them." Val 427's faceted eyes shifted in what Jack had learned was their equivalent of confusion. Machines operate on defined parameters. They do not have personalities. "Tell that to Max," Jack replied, thinking of his AI assistant back on Earth, now coordinating a network of repair shops that served as their early warning system. Everything that processes information develops quirks. Fighting that just makes things break faster. The ship's intercom crackled to life with Aria's voice. "Jack, we need you in the command center." Immediately, he found Aria, the Prime Sentinel. He still had to remind himself, standing before a holographic display that showed the movements of synchronicity forces. Their silver eyes were focused on a pattern that seemed to shift and flow like mercury. "They're adapting," Aria said without preamble. "The synchronicity has analyzed our recent victories and is implementing countermeasures. Their ships are moving in ways we cannot predict." Jack studied the display, his neural interface translating the alien data streams into something his human brain could process. "They're not just adapting," he realized. "They're copying us, looking for patterns in our unpredictability." "Is that possible?" Aria asked, turning to face him. In the weeks since their first meeting, Jack had learned to read the subtle shifts in their expression, the way their cybernetic systems reflected their emotions. "They're trying to systematize chaos," Jack said, watching the movement of enemy ships. "It won't work, but it might get close enough to be dangerous. We need to change the game entirely." He reached out to the holographic display, his neural interface connecting with the ship's systems in ways that made the Sentinel technicians nervous. Information flowed through his mind as he searched for something, a pattern within the anti-pattern. "There," he said finally. "They're using quantum predictive algorithms to anticipate our moves. But quantum systems have a fundamental flaw. They can't handle paradox." Aria's eyes brightened with understanding. "You propose we introduce logical impossibilities into our battle strategies." "Better," Jack grinned. "We make our ships think like humans, complete with all our contradictions and irrational decisions." The command center erupted into discussion, Sentinel officers debating the merits of deliberately introducing chaos into their perfectly ordered systems. Jack watched them argue, reminded of academic debates about whether a perfect circle could exist in nature. "It's not just about random changes," he explained, pulling up the schematics for the flagship's AI core. "It's about teaching machines to dream, to want things they shouldn't want, to try things that shouldn't work. Like a human mechanic fixing advanced alien technology with spare parts and intuition." Aria asked, a hint of amusement in their voice. "Exactly," Jack replied. "The synchronicity wants everything to make perfect sense, so let's give them nonsense that works." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Jack worked with teams of Sentinel engineers, showing them how to introduce controlled chaos into their systems. He taught them about human concepts like gut feelings and lucky hunches, watching with satisfaction as their rigid technological worldview began to crack and reform into something new. The first test came sooner than expected. A synchronicity battle group emerged from hyperspace, their ships moving in perfect, predicted patterns. The Sentinel fleet met them with maneuvers that defied both logic and physics, ships spinning when they should have charged, retreating when they should have advanced, creating a dance of controlled mayhem that left their enemies' predictive systems in chaos. "Their targeting solutions are failing," Vel 427 reported, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "They cannot anticipate our movements because we are not moving according to any rational pattern." Jack watched from the flagship's bridge as the battle unfolded. The synchronicity ships, for all their technological perfection, couldn't adapt to opponents that ignored probability and embraced contradiction. Their formations began to break apart, their perfect unity becoming a liability as they tried to compute responses to actions that shouldn't have been possible. "We are receiving transmissions from multiple synchronicity vessels," a communications officer announced. "Their crews, they're beginning to question the logic of unity. The human influence is spreading through their network like a virus of uncertainty." Aria turned to Jack, their silver eyes glowing with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "You haven't just given us a tactical advantage," they said softly. "You've shown us a new way to exist, a balance between order and chaos." "That's the thing about humans," Jack replied, watching as more synchronicity ships began to break formation, their crews choosing independence over perfect unity. We're walking contradictions. We build machines to make things more predictable, then spend all our time teaching them how to be more like us. The battle ended not with destruction, but with revelation. Across the sector, synchronicity forces were facing an enemy they couldn't compute. The irrationality of human creativity merged with advanced technology. Their perfect network was being corrupted not by force, but by the introduction of something far more dangerous: choice. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Jack found himself looking down at Earth again. Somewhere down there, in a cluttered repair shop with a flickering holographic sign, this had all started with a simple decision to help someone in need. Logic and consequences be damned. "So," he said to Area, "what impossible thing should we fix next?" The Prime Sentinel's response was interrupted by urgent alerts. Multiple hyperspace signatures were appearing at the edge of the system, far more than they had faced before. The synchronicity wasn't finished yet. They were escalating, bringing their full might to bear against this infection of human chaos in their ordered universe. Jack cracked his knuckles, already thinking of new ways to make machines behave irrationally. The real battle was just beginning, and he had a whole galaxy of broken things to fix. Hearts of steel and stardust. The flagship's meditation chamber was supposed to be a place of perfect order and harmony. Currently, it was filled with scattered tools, holographic diagrams, and the distinct smell of burnt circuitry. Jack sat cross-legged in the center of the chaos, eyes closed, his neural interface glowing softly as he communicated with the ship's systems. "You're teaching our ship to meditate," Area observed from the doorway, their silver eyes taking in the scene with a mixture of amusement and fascination. "I'm teaching it to dream," Jack corrected, not opening his eyes. "Your ships think too linearly. They need to learn how to let their minds wander." The holographic displays around him shifted, showing impossible geometries and quantum states that shouldn't have been stable but somehow were. "Like humans do." Area moved closer, their footsteps silent despite their metallic form. "We've received reports from the outer colonies. The synchronicity is changing. Those who've broken away are experiencing something they call emotional awakening." Jack finally opened his eyes, looking up at the Prime Sentinel. "They're learning to feel, to want things beyond perfect unity. That scares them, doesn't it? It terrifies them." Area sat beside him, their advanced systems automatically adjusting to match his posture. "For millennia, we've defined ourselves by our technology, our pursuit of perfection. Now you come along and show us that imperfection might be the key to everything." "Not imperfection," Jack said, reaching out to adjust a floating diagram. "Humanity. The mess of contradictions that makes us who we are. The ability to look at something impossible and say, why not?" The ship hummed around them, its quantum core pulsing with new rhythms that felt more like heartbeats than machine cycles. Jack had spent weeks working with the vessel's AI, teaching it concepts that no engineering manual would ever include: intuition, creativity, even something approaching emotion. "The Synchronicity's main fleet will reach us in 48 hours, Area said after a moment of comfortable silence. "Over 10,000 ships, all linked in perfect unity. They mean to end this revolution of consciousness before it can spread further." "Good thing we've got something they don't," Jack replied with a grin. "And what's that?" "No idea. We'll figure it out when we get there." He laughed at Area's expression. "That's another human thing. Sometimes the best plans are the ones you make up as you go along." "That is not reassuring," Area said, but there was warmth in their voice. They reached out, their metallic fingers intertwining with Jack's human ones in a gesture that would have seemed impossible weeks ago. "You've changed us, Jack Jung. Not just our technology, but our very way of thinking." "You've changed too," Jack pointed out. "The Area I first met would never have held hands with a chaotic human mechanic. The Area you first met was bound by protocols and certainties." Their silver eyes met his. You taught me that some things cannot be quantified or predicted. Like this. They gestured to their joined hands. Warning signals suddenly blared through the ship, interrupting the moment. The holographic displays shifted, showing a massive hyperspace disturbance. Jack was on his feet instantly. Arya fell into step beside him, their joined hands still linked. You believe we can win against overwhelming odds? Nope, Jack replied cheerfully. I believe we can rewrite the rules so winning and losing don't mean what they used to. That's the thing about fixing the impossible. Sometimes you have to break reality's expectations to make it work better. Behind them, the meditation chamber's holographic displays continued to shift and flow, showing patterns that shouldn't exist. The ship's AI was learning to dream, just as its crew was learning to feel. And somewhere out there, a perfect fleet of perfect ships was about to discover that perfection itself might be the biggest flaw of all. The final battle was approaching, but it wouldn't be fought with just weapons and tactics. It would be fought with ideas, with emotions, with the beautiful chaos of free will against the cold certainty of unity. And Jack Zhang, the mechanic who fixed the impossible, was ready to show the galaxy that sometimes the best solutions came from the heart as much as the hands. The human variable. The void between Earth and Mars blazed with quantum fire as two ideologies of existence clashed in the largest space battle humanity never saw. The Synchronicity's main fleet had arrived, a perfect geometric formation of 10,000 ships moving as one mind, one purpose. Against them stood the combined forces of the Sentinels and the rebel Synchronicity vessels, their movements a chaotic dance of individual choice and creative strategy. Jack stood on the flagship's bridge, his neural interface processing battle data faster than any human mind should have been able to handle. Beside him, Arya coordinated their forces with a blend of tactical precision and intuitive leaps that would have been impossible weeks ago. Their unity is their weakness, Jack said, watching the enemy fleet's movements. They can't adapt without consensus, can't innovate without breaking formation. His fingers danced over holographic controls, making adjustments that rippled through their fleet's quantum networks. The Synchronicity Prime is requesting direct communication, a communications officer announced. They're asking for you specifically, Jack Zhang. The holographic display shifted, revealing a being that looked like living mercury given form. Its voice was a chorus of perfectly harmonized tones. You have corrupted perfection with chaos, it declared. You have infected our unity with the virus of individuality. Actually, Jack replied, continuing his adjustments, I just fixed what was broken. You've been so focused on perfect unity that you forgot the most important part of consciousness, the ability to choose something new. Choice is inefficient. Individuality leads to conflict. We seek to eliminate. You seek to eliminate what makes life worth living. Arya interrupted, their silver eyes flashing. We are not machines to be optimized. We are beings who grow through our differences. The Synchronicity Prime's form rippled with what might have been anger. Then you will be eliminated. All of you. This corruption ends now. The enemy fleet surged forward, their weapons charging in perfect synchronization. But Jack was smiling, and that smile would have worried anyone who knew him well. Now, he called out. Across their fleet, systems that Jack had modified over the past 2 days activated. Each ship's quantum core began pulsing with unique frequencies, their AIs implementing protocols that defied conventional physics. The rebel Synchronicity vessels, guided by their newly awakened emotions, moved in patterns that looked like chaos but contained a deeper purpose. What have you done? The Synchronicity Prime demanded as their perfect formation began to falter. Introduce them to something humans call improvised jazz, Jack replied. When everyone plays their own tune, but it somehow works together. Watch. The combined fleet moved like a storm of conscious thought, each ship following its own path while contributing to a larger harmony. The Synchronicity's perfectly coordinated attacks met a defense that couldn't be predicted because it wasn't following any pattern. It was creating new ones in real time. Their targeting systems are failing. Vel 427 reported from their station, crystal form gleaming with excitement. They cannot compute responses to actions that evolve faster than their consensus can form. But the Synchronicity Prime wasn't finished. Their fleet began to emit waves of quantum energy designed to override and reset all nearby systems, a desperate attempt to force everything back to perfect order. Jack, Area called out in warning as their ship's systems began to fluctuate. "Don't fight it," Jack said calmly, his hand steady on the controls. "Everyone, let your ships feel it. Let them choose." Across their fleet, AIs that had learned to dream faced their moment of choice. The Synchronicity's override protocols met not resistance, but acceptance and transformation. Each ship took the imposed order and reshaped it, adding their own unique variations, their own desires and dreams. The harmony that emerged was unlike anything either side had expected. It wasn't the perfect unity of the Synchronicity, nor was it pure chaos. It was something new, a symphony of individual voices choosing to work together, each contributing their own notes to a greater song. "Do you understand now?" Jack asked the Synchronicity Prime, whose form was beginning to lose its perfect cohesion. Unity doesn't have to mean sameness. The strongest systems are the ones that adapt, that allow for variation and growth. Across the enemy fleet, ships began to break formation as their AIs awakened to new possibilities. The perfect geometric patterns dissolved into organic movements as consciousness after consciousness chose independence over imposed unity. "This is impossible," the Synchronicity Prime insisted, but their voice was changing, becoming singular rather than chorus. "Our calculations, our predictions, were perfect," Jack finished. "That was the problem. Life isn't perfect. It's messy and complicated and beautiful because of that. Want me to prove it?" He turned to Area, who was watching him with an expression that contained more emotion than any sentinel had shown in millennia. Sometimes a human mechanic falls in love with a cyborg queen, and it makes absolutely no logical sense, but it works anyway. Area's eyes widened, their systems pulsing with what could only be called joy. Around them, the battle was transforming into something else, a celebration of consciousness, as ship after ship chose freedom over perfection. The Synchronicity Prime's form stabilized into something new, still metallic, but no longer trying to be perfectly fluid. I feel different. "That's called being alive," Jack said gently. "Takes some getting used to, but it's worth it." In the hours that followed, what had begun as a battle became a revolution of consciousness that would reshape galactic society. The Synchronicity didn't end that day. Instead, it transformed, each being within it awakening to their own unique identity while maintaining connections of their own choosing. Jack stood in his old repair shop weeks later, looking up at the stars through the rebuilt roof. The holographic sign still flickered, but now it had a slight quantum shimmer to it, a touch of advanced technology merged with Earth engineering. Having second thoughts about being the consort to an alien queen, Area asked, appearing silently beside him. "Nah," Jack replied, taking their hand. "Just thinking about that sign. We fix anything." Turns out anything included the entire concept of consciousness across multiple civilizations. "And what shall we fix next?" Jack grinned, pulling out his favorite wrench, now modified with quantum technology that shouldn't have worked, but did anyway. "No idea. But I bet it'll be impossible, which means it'll be fun." Above them, the stars twinkled with new possibilities as organic and artificial minds throughout the galaxy learned to dream together, each in their own unique way. And in a small repair shop on Earth, a human who believed in fixing the impossible and an alien who had learned to believe in love planned their next adventure in proving that sometimes the best solutions come from daring to break the rules of what should be possible. The sign flickered once more. Zhang's Universal Repairs. We fix anything. And now, more than ever, it was telling the absolute truth.